Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome to NoDQ&A video right here on NoDQ.com, as well as the YouTube channel and NoDQ&A videos affiliate ringsidenews.com. If you would like to support NoDQ and our various shows, make sure you go to ProWrestlingTees.com and grab a t-shirt. We have the Talk Wrestling t-shirt, as well as a NoDQ.com t-shirt and also a NoDQ&A video t-shirt. Several options. Go to ProWrestlingTees.com, search NoDQ, or check out the link in the description box. With that being said, let's get down to your questions today. Got a lot of questions to talk about. First one today comes from Andy. Now that WWE is making a film about Paige, do you think Paige and WWE are on good terms now? Maybe a championship run? All of that is still up in the air right now. I think that before this movie was announced, the chances of Paige coming back were slim, but now that The Rock is involved in this project, I think that there's a decent chance she'll be back at some point. The more publicity it gets and the more hype there is, the more her name is in the headlines, I think the chances will be greater of WWE bringing her back. I think a lot of it has to do with her though, and where her mental state is and how she feels about WWE, and if continuing her career in WWE is something that she's really passionate about and something that she wants to do. If she is dedicated to coming back and giving it her best and going back to the way things were before and possibly becoming even better, then I think WWE would definitely consider bringing her back and giving her a big push. But right now, all of that is still a big question mark. Will she be brought back? How big will this movie be? There's a lot of different questions, but with The Rock being involved, one would think that this movie will get a lot of attention and possibly increase her chances of coming back and getting a big push at some point. This one comes from Grant. What do you think of having a mixed tag team title? Maybe John Cena and Nikki versus the Miz and Maurice to kick it off? I'm a fan of WWE trying different things and perhaps introducing new championships, but that is one I'm not really a big fan of, because in order to do that, you would have to have mixed tag team matches on a regular basis, and I think that that would get old really fast. To me, it's more of a novelty. When you do it every once in a while, it can be an interesting matchup, but I'm not sure that is something I would want to see on a weekly basis and a roster full of half a dozen mixed tag teams. I'm not sure that's something that would work, but I'm curious to know what you guys think. Leave a comment. Do you think that WWE should introduce a mixed tag team title? Maybe I'll even do a poll on NoDQ.com and see what people think, but if I was making the decision, I would probably go with no as far as introducing that championship. This one comes from Javier Reyes. What about Miz versus Daniel Bryan at WrestleMania and having it end similar to Bryan and Sheamus from WrestleMania 28? I have seen that idea thrown around. People are suggesting maybe Daniel Bryan could just beat up The Miz real quick in a 30-second match without Bryan having to take any bumps. To me, it's not really necessary. I mean, yeah, there should be some sort of payoff for all this Daniel Bryan Miz hype, but I'm not sure that that would be the right way to do it. I mean, maybe fans would be satisfied with it, but I think back to Bret Hart, and I'm sure Bryan could do a lot more than Bret Hart did, but I'm still not really sold on that idea of Bryan just coming out there and beating up The Miz really quick and that's it. I suppose it could work, but again, I have mixed feelings. I'm not sure if that's something that I would do. I mean, I wouldn't have even done the teases in the first place. If Bryan's going to come back, I want to see him come back full force, be 100% Daniel Bryan. You know, Steve Austin talked about how he did not want to come back and be less than 100% Stone Cold, and that's how I feel about Daniel Bryan. I think it would be cheap for him to come back just to beat up The Miz at WrestleMania and that be the end. I mean, I really don't see the point. If Bryan's going to get in the ring, let him get in the ring and be the Daniel Bryan that we knew and loved. This one comes from Jake. Would you allow a multi-man ladder match for the Cruiserweight title on the main WrestleMania card if it got them the right reactions? I would be fine with it. I think it would be an exciting match, and realistically, I think there's a decent chance of it happening because of the fact that WWE likes to get as many people on the WrestleMania card as possible. And with the Andre the Giant Battle Royal, my guess is that match will feature most of the regular talent roster that isn't in a match at WrestleMania, and that will leave the door open for a multi-man match with the Cruiserweights. WWE might not feel that a singles Cruiserweight match is big enough for WrestleMania. Who knows? So I could very well see WWE doing that, and I think the Cruiserweights would be able to showcase their abilities in that type of match. You know, that's a stunt show type of match where guys are doing all the crazy dives, and you know, that's the stuff that people like from the Cruiserweights when they're doing all the high flying moves. So when you add a ladder to the mix, I mean, I think that match would help get all those guys over at WrestleMania, and they would be able to get the big reactions doing the high spots, which the Cruiserweights are known for. I do think it's a good idea. Personally, I would rather see Austin Aries versus Neville one-on-one. I'd rather see that at WrestleMania, but I would be fine with a Cruiserweight match. I mean, I think it's a very solid idea to do a ladder match with those guys for the Cruiserweight title. To me, that's fine. This one comes from Larby. Should WWE team up Callisto and Apollo Crews like they did with Sheamus and Cesaro? The problem is that they're friends. I mean, that wouldn't exactly be the same storyline. Now, maybe if they did Dolph Ziggler and Callisto or Dolph Ziggler and Apollo Crews, but why do a repeat of that storyline? I mean, it's been way too soon to do that odd couple storyline. To me, it's definitely way too early. I would give it a year or two before doing another storyline like that. And with Callisto and Apollo Crews, I mean, wouldn't make any sense. How are they an odd couple? They're already friends. I'd like to see Apollo Crews turn heel on Callisto. That's what I'm thinking they should do, and just let them feud, and then maybe a year or two down the line, maybe consider teaming them up. But you know, I'm not really big on that idea. This one comes from Bobby. With concussions being what they are, how come the WWE is allowing Jack Gallagher to use the headbutt? That's a good question. My guess is that because it's not as risky as doing something off the top rope, it's something that Gallagher has more control over. When you're doing a headbutt from the top rope, there's less room for error, and it's more difficult to pull that off without hurting yourself. I just feel it's safer the way that Gallagher is doing it. He has more control over the impact of the spot. That's my guess, at least. I mean, I would avoid doing those moves, period. I mean, there's always a risk, but then again, there's always a risk with anything that you do in the ring. You know, anything can lead to a serious injury, and you know, I think they are being careful with the concussions, and I think if Gallagher was not able to do that move safely, that they wouldn't allow him to do it. So he must be able to pull it off without management being too concerned. Because we know how they are. They're very concerned, and they're very cautious about guys doing moves. This one comes from Smrtaza A. Shah. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Probably not. Is Seth Rollins returning at WWE Fastlane and feuding with Triple H, and what are your thoughts? I'm not sure when Seth Rollins is going to be involved in the storyline again. He is scheduled for this coming Monday night to do an interview about his status, and I think we'll know more at that point. But then again, they also may just have Rollins say, I'm still not sure what's happening, and they'll keep this thing delayed until there's a definite word about Rollins' status for WrestleMania. He may or may not appear at Fastlane. If he's given the green light, he's definitely going to be back before WrestleMania, then I could see him possibly being at Fastlane. But my feeling is that if it's still touch and go and it's still not 100% he's going to be back for WrestleMania, then I could see WWE dragging this out as long as possible, maybe even just a couple of weeks until WrestleMania before going in a definite direction. And Fastlane's coming up. It's only a week and a half away. I'm leaning towards he will not be at Fastlane, but if he's ready to go for sure for WrestleMania, then I would not rule it out that they'll shoot some angle at the Fastlane pay-per-view. This one comes from Simon Lee. Hey Aaron, what is TNA's best year in their history and why? Most people would say 2005 or 2006. I thought 2005 was a really good year. You had a lot of great TNA matches. You had AJ Styles in that Ultimate X match, which was one of my favorites. You had, of course, the triple threat, AJ, Samoa Joe, and Christopher Daniels. Many would say that that was the best match in TNA history, and that's very debatable. I mean, that's generally considered to be the best match in TNA history, and I would consider that to be one of the best, if not the best match that TNA's ever done, and the most memorable. When people think of TNA, they think of that match, at least the good parts of TNA. 2006 was a good year. We had Kurt Angle coming in. We had Sting in his first year in TNA. We had Christian coming in. A lot of interesting things in TNA. And 2006 was a year where it felt like TNA was going to become a major force and possibly rival WWE in popularity. 2009 was a pretty good year. You know, the Main Event Mafia, even though it really did nothing to elevate the younger talent, which it needed to, it still made for some entertaining television, and I think it was the most serious people took TNA in the history of the company. Their live event attendances were at their peak, and the pay-per-view buy rates, I think, were at their peak as well. The television ratings were at their peak. So as far as a business goes, you know, 2009 was probably TNA's best year. This one comes from Jared J. Smith. Hey Aaron, what are your thoughts on TNA the last few weeks? It seems like storylines are improving. I still feel that nothing has changed in TNA. I feel like nothing has any credibility, and to me that's just the fact that TNA as a brand is dead. And I feel like I'm repeating myself here. I mean, I watched the whole thing with the Wolves with Davey Richards and Eddie Edwards, and to me it just came off as so low rent. I mean, everything about it, the acting performances weren't that good. You had Josh Matthews on commentary, not really doing a good job selling it at all. I just felt like, you know, they're in the Impact Zone, and just the whole thing didn't feel like something important. They tried. They really were trying to make that a big angle, but to me, I just wasn't buying it. And the numbers are not really moving. TNA's not really gaining any momentum. Even with the Hardys, even as much as people have enjoyed the Hardys storyline, it still isn't resulting in TNA business turning around. And I don't think that's going to happen unless you do a major overhaul. And it just hasn't happened yet. Something needs to be done. Something significant. And we haven't gotten it yet. And until we get that, I feel like TNA is just going to be at a certain level. There's a glass ceiling. TNA is only going to go so far without some sort of major changes to get people reinvested in the TNA product. This one comes from Chris. Hey Aaron, why isn't WWE inducting ECW stars into the Hall of Fame like Tommy Dreamer or Rob Van Dam, but they induct stars from WCW? Well, for one thing, stars in WCW were bigger mainstream stars than the ECW guys. Now, with that being said, I mean, WWE has a good relationship with those ECW stars and the ECW management, like Paul Heyman. I'm almost positive we will see Paul Heyman in the Hall of Fame one day. I would be shocked if we didn't. Guys like RVD and Tommy Dreamer and the Dudleys, I think they will be in the Hall of Fame sooner than later. It's all about timing. These guys will get in at some point. So I would just be patient. It will happen, most likely, with all the names I mentioned. And, you know, ECW was very crucial in the rise of wrestling's popularity in the mid-90s. So Paul Heyman will definitely get that recognition, I think. and RVD, Tommy Dreamer. I suspect they'll be in. It's just a matter of time, you know. Will it happen next year? Who knows? Again, it's all about the timing. This one comes from Uncanny. Do you think WWE will go to the extreme of putting a mask on David Benoit so fans won't recognize him, or is that pettiness thinking? I'm not sure how David Benoit is as a wrestler. I mean, he has shown interest in pursuing a WWE career. Unfortunately, the name is going to hurt him far more than help at this point. There's no way I think WWE will allow him to use the Benoit name. If he was good enough, I think that they would put him on television and give him an opportunity, but I think he would need to have the skills. And they would probably, if they were going to use him, I think they would probably just change his name. I don't see the need to put a mask on him. I mean, they could, but I think changing the name would be just fine. Now, I could see the argument that he looks very much like his father, and some people might not feel comfortable with that. I'm not sure, but I think if he ever gets a shot, it'll be because of his skills, and at that point, they can figure out how they're going to present him on TV. So right now, I mean, it's still very much up in the air, and I'm not really familiar with what he can do in the ring. So it's hard to say if he'll ever get an opportunity in WWE. Got this one here from Andrew. Can you see Enzo transitioning into a manager? I can see them pushing Cass as a single star and moving away from Enzo as in-ring talent. Right now, I would say it's too early to tell. I mean, a lot of people are feeling critical about Enzo, that he's not that good of a wrestler and he botches a lot of things. The thing about Enzo is, you know, he might end up being injury prone. We've seen him get hurt before, and there's some concern about that. Some people feel that he really has nothing else to offer besides the mic work, and that may or may not be true. Again, I'm not sure if there's been enough time to really make a good judgment call on that, if he should be wrestling on a regular basis. But I think if, you know, things don't work out for him in the ring, that he'll be able to keep a job in WWE in some form as a manager or representing somebody. I mean, he's got so much charisma that, you know, he should be around for the foreseeable future. He's got the ability on the mic that few have in WWE. Like I've said before, if you could take Enzo's charisma and mic work and combine it with Cass's size, then you would have your next big star in WWE. You would have potentially your next Steve Austin or Rock. Unfortunately, one guy has what the other guy is lacking, and vice versa. And that's why, you know, they're best off as a group right now, so you have the best of both worlds. This one comes from Bader Orton. Hey Aaron, where would you put the Shield among the best WWE factions ever? Easily on the top 5? I think so. I think history will remember the Shield as one of the great WWE groups. I mean, probably the best group since Evolution. You look at their success as a group, they were very dominant right from the get-go. WWE got it right with the Shield. The Shield was pushed as a dominant faction right from the start. They won their first pay-per-view match. They were undefeated for, what was it, 7 or 8 months. And they won a lot of big matches. And then when they broke up, all 3 of them became major superstars and world champions. So I look at the Shield and see nothing but success. No doubt they would have to be, if not in the top 5, very close. I mean, you have the NWO, 4 Horsemen, DX, Evolution, the Corporation, maybe a few others, and the Shield's going to be right there. Maybe number 5, maybe number 6. I mean, definitely one of the best groups in WWE history. This one comes from Mr. Yuck. Should the Hardys stay broken with Impact and Indies or end up getting the Dudley treatment in WWE? I think the Hardys, if they come back to WWE, they will get a bigger push than the Dudleys. I mean, when you look back in history, I feel like the Hardys were ultimately bigger stars than the Dudleys. I mean, Jeff Hardy was WWE champion at one point, and Matt had a really successful singles run himself. Dudley's had a great amount of success as a tag team, but when they split up, they did not have quite as much success as the Hardys. So I think in terms of overall star power, you have to go with the Hardys, and I think WWE would give them big pushes. I think they would be in high-profile matches, potentially singles, but I think it's more likely they would get a run with the tag team titles. I don't think it would be like the Dudleys, where they come in, get a bit of a push, and then they're just basically enhancement talent. I think that the Hardys would be treated more like main eventers if they came back to WWE. So I'm not too concerned about that. And I do think one day we will see the Hardys back in WWE for one last run, and then they'll go into the Hall of Fame. Again, going back to that earlier question, it's about the timing with the Hall of Fame and just going with the right time when all the stars are aligned, when the time is right. That'll wrap it up for No DQ&A video today. Thanks as always for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please share it, tell a friend, anybody you know who watches wrestling, tell them about No DQ&A video and the YouTube channel. That is the best way you can support NoDQ.com and the videos. And also, like I said at the beginning, go to ProWrestlingTees.com. We have the Talk Wrestling with Jeff Meacham t-shirt, as well as the official NoDQ.com t-shirt and No DQ&A video t-shirt. All those at ProWrestlingTees.com. Search NoDQ or check out the link in the description box of this video. With that being said, I will see you guys next time.